being here. I truly appreciate you. It's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Neil. And I just want to say Portal to Ascension is amazing. It's kind of like another Gaia TV, actually, with a bunch of different specialists. So I'm very honored to be here. It has been a while since I have done an event, a conference, and it's going to be a while since I do, until I do another one. I'm really just clearing space, standing in my power, saying no a lot, and being in life, being in the present moment. And I'm really loving it. So I feel so energized, so refreshed, so excited. Today we're talking all about the fifth dimension. I highly, highly recommend, if you don't already, please grab a notebook and a pen. There's going to be a lot of great stuff to write down here. And also just a reminder that in buying this ticket, you get to rewatch this as many times as you want as well. So just know that you can come back around and watch this. I think he said it was going to be up by tomorrow or maybe next week sometime, but it should be up shortly as far as the recording. And I wanted to kind of just start off by asking you, how are you? What's going on in your life? We stepped into June 2021, and 2021 has been crazy. It's kind of been its own kind of crazy in relation to 2020. 2020 was different, it was weird, but 2021, it feels like this absolute overwhelm energy that has been here pretty much this whole year. And it feels like we've been on this roller coaster ride of processing, integrating, experiencing, emoting, and then coming back down and just integrating all of that and just being still. So today I'm hoping that I give you some really great tools, some really great pieces of homework, some really great things to think about that maybe you haven't thought about in a while. Maybe you haven't thought at all. So yeah, so it's going to be really good. Lots and lots of information. So like I said, like Neil said, chat in the chat room, and then also you can put your questions in the Q&A button as well. And at the end, we're going to do a little Q&A and really just answer any of your questions. Make it pretty general, not something like, what's my spirit guide, or like, what star system am I from, but more like, what's going on with the planet right now, or like, how do I, integrate this energy of 5D or what have you. So yeah, so good stuff. All right. What else did I want to mention before we deep dive? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So right at the beginning, I'm going to go over a couple of main concepts, things that I just kind of want to define for everyone so that we're all on the same page when diving into this. The first thing is, what exactly is the fifth dimension? Right? This is such a key question, and I think it's so like untangible. That's really what it is, so that everyone has their own ideas of what 5D really is. Here's what I wrote down. Dimensions are just a varying degree of different frequencies. I'm going to repeat that because it's really important. Dimensions are just a varying degree of different frequencies. That's all a dimension is a frequency, and it's got a different vibration per dimension. So the difference in frequencies affect the existence of the physical. So each dimension that we step into, you're going to notice different physical attributes of that dimension based on the vibrational frequency. We all think that the physical world affects the vibrational, but it's always the vibrational world affecting the physical. And we're going to get into a couple of those differences between the third dimension and the fifth dimension in a little bit. I also put here as well, like the fifth dimension is honestly just more oneness. It's more service to others. It's more compassion. And ultimately, it's more of a connection to source. So, oh yeah, I did draw a couple of images here for you guys as well. And let's see if I can find my pen. There we go. So, let's see. So I believe from what I've channeled that there's 12 dimensions in this universe. There was talk a long time ago within the Galactic Federation that there's 13, or that a 13th dimension is opening. Not sure where that's at right now. But basically, this is the 12th. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of hard to see. So that's the 12th dimension, right? And above the 12th dimension is pure source frequency. Any being, any soul that is incarnated or existing in any one of the 12 dimensions is separate from source. So you can imagine, as we go all the way to the bottom of the first, second, third dimension, we are extremely far from source frequency. As we move into the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and beyond dimension, we actually get more and more connected to source. All source is everything and nothing altogether. There is no duality, there is no polarity, there is no 0 or 1, there is just everything. But everything also equates to nothing simultaneously. It's kind of difficult to wrap our heads around, but that's why we're going to get more compassion, more connection, more of that oneness vibration within the fifth dimension versus the third dimension frequency. The other thing I wrote down here is the easiest way to think about the fifth dimension is that it is a state of being rather than a place. Okay. Once again, the fifth dimension is a state of being rather than a place. A lot of us, I get this. I used to get this question all the time years ago. All right, Elizabeth, like, where do we go? Where do we go when we hop into the fifth dimension? You go right here, right into your body, actually. You're probably more in your body, more aware, more present, more engaged than ever before. We're going to talk a little bit about that engagement and what that looks like and what that feels like, because sometimes, most of the time, higher vibrational frequencies can feel very overstimulating. It can feel very overwhelming to hop into a higher frequency because all of your senses are heightened. So panic and anxiety attacks are actually a very common symptom of hopping into the fifth dimension, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. Moving on to the third dimension. What is the third dimension? We kind of totally skipped over the fourth, and we'll leave it at that. The third dimension is just a lower vibrational frequency, is how I kind of describe it. Within the third dimension, we're going to find more service to self, more separation from source, and more individualism. It's the us versus them mentality. And once again, it's because the third dimension is quite far out and quite far separated from source frequency. We've lost all of our memory of who we really are as souls, as beings of pure light. I also wanted to just kind of describe or talk a little bit about, at the beginning, 0 point frequency. I will be talking about 0 point frequency throughout the webinar. So 0 point, it was kind of difficult to define, but this is how I defined it. It's the space in between all of the dimensions. 0 point frequency is the space in between all of the dimensions. It isn't a place, it isn't a dimension. I would even be hard pressed to say that it's a vibrational frequency at all. It's almost like if you could imagine all existence coming together in one singular point. That would be 0 point. 0 point, I haven't explored it too much, but I definitely work with it a lot. It's a place of neutrality. And I would consider 0 point where everything exists and where nothing exists simultaneously. Very, very similar to source. It's almost like a momentary experience of source is 0 point. And I'll leave it at that. What else did I say here? Oh yeah. So 0 point is also a place that when we get too caught up in one energy or another, 0 point is basically where we want to come back to recalibrate. So 0 point, and I also use the word neutrality, is a place to recalibrate. We need 0 point. We need neutrality in order to recalibrate our chaos frequency. Whether it be chaos in the light or chaos in the dark, we all stumble into that overwhelm, that chaos. Okay, so last kind of concept that I wanted to open up with is discernment. What is it and why is it important? Ultimately, I define discernment as the inner knowledge of what does and what does not resonate with you. So maybe philosophers, maybe politicians, maybe other religious leaders would describe discernment as the knowledge of what is right and wrong, the knowledge of good and bad. I personally do not believe that there is any one good and any one bad, that there is any one right and any one wrong. I believe that all of that is subjective, and we're going to get into that. And in order to move into 5D frequency, we need to exit the matrix, and this matrix is polarizing. That's all that it is. It's full of polarity. And so by removing yourself, by getting into 0 point frequency more often, you are going to be able to step into objective observation. And that's the key to navigating 5D, but we're going to really break that down. I also put here as well, within discernment, most of the issues in society and at an individual level have to do with not having the ability to know. Most of the issues that I encounter at an individual level with clients, within my own life, within society, is just not knowing. So, you know, things like not knowing who you are, not knowing what you want, not knowing where you're going, those kind of things. The not knowing is the ultimate fear within humanity. It's the fear of the unknown, is really what it comes down to. Now, I will say that it's okay not to know. As a matter of fact, I believe that not knowing and surrendering to the not knowing is a great form of strength and empowerment. But once you feel confused about what is right or wrong for you, you always need to bring yourself back to 0 point frequency. Okay, so that's it, the confusion. A lot of the time we make decisions out of fight or flight frequency rather than objectivity. And that is our biggest issue. That confusion, that uncertainty, that fear, that doubt, that insecurity is all going to lead us to make decisions out of fight or flight mentality. And that fight or flight is the vibration of the third dimension. It's polarizing, it's separating, it's a low frequency. It will take us farther away from the source. All right. So just a couple of, concepts so that we're all on the same page, because we'll be talking about these concepts a lot. So how do we get into 5D frequency? How do we get in? That's like the grand question. Okay, this is going to be a little bit, what is it called? Like, not shocking, but like maybe it goes against the narrative. There is nothing that you need to do, and ultimately nothing that you can do to get into 5D. And what I mean by that is eating the right foods, doing yoga, meditating, setting intentions, saying prayers. Like, these are all beautiful, amazing, incredible things. But the second that you're like, as long as I'm eating a vegan diet, I'll hop into 5D. As long as I'm meditating for 3 hours a day, I'll hop into 5D. It doesn't work like that. And I'll tell you right now that in your mind, if you have any sort of connection or attachment or expectation to doing one thing to get you into 5D, you're actually pulling yourself deeper into 3D. Because your attachment and expectation only ever leads to disappointment, which is only ever going to bring you back down. And then there's going to be this cycle of reaction, attachment, expectation, disappointment, reaction, attachment, and disappointment. All right. So just because I'm saying there's nothing that you can do to get yourself into 5D, the point I'm trying to make is the physical world, your physical action does not catapult you into 5D. It doesn't. However, there are things that we can do to help us break down the layers of the 3D. That's the most difficult part. 5D is easy because the fifth dimension frequency is closer to source, which means it's closer to our soul, which means it's our natural freaking state of being. Every single incarnation is a polarity. Whether you're incarnated in the 10th dimension or the 3rd dimension, you're going to be stuck with polarity, which means you're going to be stuck with limitation. Every state of being in between every incarnation, you are just a soul. You are just energy. You are connected to source frequency. You are everything and nothing. All right. So being in a higher frequency is easy. What's difficult, what we have to deal with is the 3D. It's the attachment. It's the expectation. It's that mucky stuff. So this is going to be a little shocking, but I'm going to say it because let's just shock the polarity out of you to get you into neutrality. A murderer can hop into 5D. Yep, I said it. A murderer can hop into 5D. That is just a very extreme example, so please don't go off and, God forbid, you do anything, all right? But it's an extreme example of the fact that no matter what you have done or not done physically, you have the capacity to hop into 5D at any time, at any state of your life. So for you to say, I can't be 5D until I have a loving relationship. I can't be 5D until I'm eating healthier. I can't be 5D until I love myself. You're putting conditions, attachments, and expectations on a higher vibrational frequency that has nothing to do with the 3rd physical dimension reality. Okay, so please let go of any sort of conditions you've put on yourself about being able to step into a higher frequency and live your best freaking life. I will only love myself once I lose the 10 pounds or I repair the relationship with my mom. No, love yourself now, today. All right, so we're going to break this down a little bit more. Once again, extreme examples, but something to think about. So even though I did say that, a murderer can hop into 5D frequency, in order to move into a higher state of being, you have to have a clear conscience. You have to have a clear vibration. You really do. So once again, that means working on the 3D. So doing certain things, like I mentioned, will help you shed the layers of the 3D. Working on your human first, without any expectations of 5D, will basically push you into a higher state of being. And then this is what I put down here, but I kind of just explained it. Attachment to needing to be in 5D will lead you to disappointment of not being in 5D, and therefore will pull you into 3D. The attachment of what you want will actually take away the thing that you want. It's like straight up. And that's like a good rule of thumb to anything that you want in your life as well. So I have 2 steps, and it's pretty simple. The 2 steps here as far as how to step into the 5th dimension frequency. Step number 1, one word, recognize. And the other word that I would say for recognition would be awareness. There is no shift that is able to happen unless we recognize and we are aware of who we are, of where we are, of what we're doing, of what discernment-wise feels good and doesn't feel good for us. Okay? So recognize anything and everything that is not serving you. It's good to be aware of it all, But the first thing, in order to really truly shed those 3D layers, is to recognize what in your life isn't serving you. Okay? So I want you to do this homework a little bit later, but if you want, you can do this homework right now as well. Write a list of all of the top aspects of your life that don't totally serve your highest vibration. A list of all of the things in your life that aren't fully serving your highest frequency. Now, the follow-up question to that is, but how do I know that this is or is not serving me? What I find, this is just kind of like a personal thing that I find in my own life, anytime anything isn't serving me, I tend to question it often. There tends to be some doubt there. It tends to kind of ruminate in your mind a lot. If something keeps coming up in your own mind, it's a good indication that one aspect of that thing is not fully aligned to your highest frequency. Okay? So step number one is just really recognize what isn't working for you. There's a lot of things. So a couple of things that I wrote down that are kind of the main things that I find is school, work, partner, living situation, financial situation, location, body, wardrobe, could be friends, family, neighbors, whatever. So if you're vulnerable and you want to kind of step in a little bit, oh, is my voice really muffled? I don't have all my equipment here, unfortunately.
It's tiny bit, Elizabeth, but not really an issue. The only thing you could maybe do is go to your mic settings and turn down your microphone a bit, and maybe it just won't clip at the end. You know?
Turn down the microphone a bit.
Yeah, do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. But it sounds fine. So if you can fix it a little bit, that's good. But otherwise, it's okay.
I can also switch to my laptop mic.
Let's try that.
Hello.
Oh, that's like 10 times better.
Is that better? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you guys. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, all my equipment is literally stuck in a U-Haul box right now for the next month. So please type in the chat box, what are some of the biggest struggles that you're going through right now at this time? What are some of your biggest, what are the things that keep coming up that you're battling yourself about, that you're questioning all the time, that make you feel sick to your stomach, that you just feel like you can't fully overcome? What are the things? Please write them down, not only just in your notebooks, but also in the chat. And I find that we're all kind of experiencing and going through similar issues and similar dilemmas as well. And the recognition is key. Okay. We've got Scarillo here, self-sabotage and fear of taking the leap. Absolutely. I mean, the self-sabotage piece is huge. Now, I just want to kind of mention here about self-sabotage. There's a lot of this cycle when we don't know what's wrong. So, for example, I have a family member of mine. She's in a relationship right now. I mean, I'm just going to be straight up honest because you guys are my community. She's in a relationship with a reptilian shapeshifter. And yeah, and all the things, like very gregarious, very outgoing, very charming, very much like, yes, it's a perfect life. And I see and I observe this relationship and I get reminded immediately of my past relationship where I was in that situation too. And I've given her all the information that she could ever possibly need to make the right decision for her without ever making a decision for her, okay? It's always so important, someone else's free will. However, every other aspect of her life right now, financially, family-wise, with her kids, her work. I mean, everything is all breaking apart and breaking down. Now, in my mind, that is an indication that one of her main strong foundations in her life are disharmonious. So the problem with things in our life breaking down and not fully being aligned is it's very difficult for us to pinpoint the main cause of the problem. Now, I relate this, and I had said this in my book, it's very similar to kind of finding out which food is giving you that weird rash. In order to find out which food your body is reacting negatively towards, we got to get rid of all of the food to figure it out, and then integrate food items one by one back into our diet. It's the exact same thing. You don't need to know what the root cause of all of the disharmony in your life is, but what you can do is recognize what isn't working for you. Okay, it's like step number one. And then step number two is transmute it, right? And we're gonna get into that a little bit here. Okay, also beating yourself up for being in debt, stuck on helping others, overlooking after me. It's a balancing act, absolutely, Kim, for sure. Fear of death and physical decline, Lewis, yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of humans deal with that. I think the ultimate fear is of death, and we try and preserve our life every step of the way. The second I found in my own life, the second I was able to accept death in the next moment and feel totally fulfilled and totally satisfied in my life, to say, I lived my life to the fullest, which also means there were days and there are days where I relax and I do nothing but watch TV and eat food. And it's glorious. And that is me living my life to the fullest. So overcoming that fear of death is huge. And I feel like that's a huge liberator for everything else in our life. But it's understandable as a human being. That's all we have. All we have. It's not all this material shit. It's life. It's life itself. So of course we would have some sort of fear in losing that. Feeling the manipulation and censorship of voices, absolutely. With the vaccination, pandemic, try not to get swayed into the polarity or feeling like I need to save the world. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Phoenix, realizing how much it hurts when people don't appreciate what you do for them or try to help them. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice, Phoenix. I got this advice a long time ago through a metaphor. I think it was like a metaphor. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can help everyone in your entire life, but ultimately you can't give them what they need the most. They need to do that for themselves. When I take a look at my life, there were a lot of signs along the way, but ultimately I had to make that choice. When you take a step back and you indoctrinate the rule of thumb, which I've done in my own life, I do not help anyone unless they ask. And when they ask, I check into myself to say, how much capacity do I have to hold space for this person? And then I make my choice. All right, there's gotta be healthy boundaries when giving yourself to others and helping the world, or else you're gonna be drained and you're not gonna be a light on this planet. You're gonna be hidden in the shadows. So be aware of that. Finding your worth, yeah. Not wanting to work in traditional jobs, yeah, absolutely. Loneliness, absolutely. We're going to talk about loneliness. Setting healthy boundaries with friends and families, and and respecting that you say no, for sure. That's huge. Feeling frustrated, angry, helpless with what's being done on our earth and humans. I feel that. Tired of all the lies in the third dimension, yeah. Having a balance, seeing my kids stuck in the matrix, that must be so tough. I can only imagine. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the symptoms that we go through when entering into the fifth dimension, and it's all of these things. A lot of people think, I'm moving into the fifth dimension. It's rainbows and butterflies, and I'm manifesting money, and I'm, living my best life. It's not. Moving into the fifth dimension is one of the most painful experiences any of us can go through. And the reason why is because we need to break down our own disillusion of what we thought our life was versus what it really is. And that's huge. So once again, step one is recognizing what is and what is not in highest resonation with you. Now, you can write down your job. Okay, let's just say, don't like my job. Okay. So just because you don't believe your job resonates with you doesn't mean you just get rid of your job and in 2 months from now, you're freaking homeless on the street. That's not what it means. It means that we need to recognize the things that are not serving us in our life to change them, not to get rid of them. If we were to say, my partner isn't serving me, I'm getting rid of them and I'm walking away and I'm divorcing because that's the thing that we can do in this society, you're leaving a ton of unfinished business and you're making a decision through fight or flight. You're creating extra karma and energetic emotional baggage that you're just going to have to deal with down the line. The whole point of the fifth dimension frequency is we have nothing left and we are fully updated and attuned to this present moment vibration. That's what 5D is. There's no, I'll deal with that later. So the second step here to entering into, to shifting into, to moving into 5D frequency is to transmute. Recognize, step number one, and transmute is step number two. Like I said, it's actually extremely detrimental for you to say, this doesn't work, I'm getting rid of it. This doesn't work, I'm getting rid of it. Like I said, we're not actually dealing with it. By focusing on the trigger, by focusing on what doesn't work for you and transmuting it to a higher vibrational frequency, means that you never have to deal with that issue again. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's talk about transmuting for a second. The most efficient and effective way to transmute something into a higher frequency is to find some aspect of appreciation. Any aspect of appreciation, all right? It also doesn't mean that you have to stay with that thing just because you have transmuted it, all right? Once again, but it doesn't mean that you should get rid of it just because you recognize it doesn't serve you. So it's a balance, it's a balance. Yes, but you will be unable to make a clear decision moving forward if you are resenting or resisting it. So swinging from one end of the spectrum to the other will help you get to 0 point. And I have an image that I drew here for you guys, but I'm hoping it shows up with the light. Okay, that kind of shows up. Okay, I think it's flipped, which sucks, but so this is how you transmute. So over here you have fear, and then under fear I also put reaction as well. So fear, basically reaction is the emotional action from fear. Anytime you're in trigger, anytime you're reactionary, you're in fear in one way or another. The other end of the spectrum, all the way over here, is love. And the other form of love is appreciation, okay? So here's what happens when you're in fear and you're in reaction and you're like, fuck the government, fuck the vaccines, this is all crazy, people are illusioned, they're sheep, I don't know, whatever I get it, the anger there, okay? And then you're like, but if I think back to my own life, I only was able to awaken to my own internal truth through some of the most dark and devastating and disillusioned aspects of my reality, which means that, hey, I'm going to take all of this anger I have to the current state of reality, and I'm going to understand and appreciate that society needs to go through this really dark time right now in order to awaken and evolve. The second that you're able to take the things that you've recognized do not align to your highest vibration, and you can find one small aspect, ounce of love and appreciation within it, you're swinging from one end of the vibrational spectrum all the way to the other end of the vibrational spectrum. And you know what that's going to allow you to do? It's going to allow you to come right here to 0 point frequency, which is neutrality. If we go and we experience both ends of polarity, light and dark, dark and light, it allows us to be a master of this reality. And the only position that you can be the full master of your own reality is if you come from a place of objective observation. If you come from a place and maintain a place of neutrality. So think about it this way. My husband, okay, not mine, this is an example. My husband is a cheater. He disrespects me. He doesn't listen to me. I don't feel supported. I always feel anxious in his energy. I feel chaotic. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around him. But he's a good dad. Then the confusion sets in. I hate him, but I love him, and he's awful, but he's good to my kids. And now I'm just kind of bouncing back and forth between fear and love. Take a step back. Anytime you feel the chaotic reverberation of going from either side of polarity, and trust me, I mean, all of us right now, especially for 2021, we've been hopping into 5D, 3D multiple times, thousands of times per day. And it's been a lot, and it's exhausting going from a low vibration to a high vibration. It's exhausting. That's why we're all fucking tired, is because of the 3D, 5D balance, basically, and flipping. When you're exhausted, when you're trying to make the best of it out of a worse situation, take a step back. Center yourself into your heart space. Fully understand and realize that this is just one life among millions of lifetimes that you're going to have, if not billions of lifetimes that you're going to experience in this universe. That none of that matters. That it's all insignificant, that it's all momentary, that it will not last or exist forever, that sometimes there is nothing that you can do to better a situation. When we're feeling the overwhelm of being in between, taking that step back, observing your life as a whole is really profound. And I want to also mention like a little bit of a tool that I used to use all the time years ago. And I think that we were taught, I don't know if we were taught in school or by our parents or by religion, that comparing yourself to others isn't good. Right? Now, if we look at comparing ourselves to others on the spectrum of like competition and pride and the need to like win, yeah, don't compare yourself to others because it might fall into the hands of disappointment. What I used to do years ago when I was in a really bad place was I would think to myself, you know, my boyfriend's cheating on me, we're breaking up, my grades in university are shit. You know, I have this like spirit who's like haunting me in my house. Like it was just like nonstop, one thing after another. And I would think to myself, but I live in Canada. I have a roof over my house. I have water that, even though it's freaking poisoned with fluoride, I can drink it. I mean, think about the starving children in Africa. Think about all of the third world countries out there who don't have the basic needs that I have at my fingertips, and I'm crying over a boyfriend that's breaking up with me. Not to undermine the emotions there, but to really truly understand that right now, this day, June 5th, 2021, is someone out there's worst day of their entire life. But also, this day, right here, June 5th, is someone else's best day of their entire life. There are people being murdered and raped and trafficked. And there are people who are having their first child and getting married and walking through the woods and finding nirvana. It's really good to put your life and your grievances in perspective as a whole. If one of your greatest triggers is what's happening on the planet, I can't blame you, okay? Because it's really fucked up. Especially Canada is really messed up right now. Imagine this. I'm gonna draw it for you. No words, because clearly that's all flipped. Okay. So let's just say this is me, okay? I come to Canada, right? So I literally moved here from LA recently, a couple days ago actually. And say, for example, this is my one timeline, right? We've got infinite numbers of timelines we're flipping into in every single moment. And in this time, I'm like, oh my God, Canada's gotten so bad and it's a freaking communist state and like we have no choice and I'm locked down and all these tests and maybe the potential vaccine mandatory and the government's really messed up and it's crazy and I'm just sitting in this black hole of sludge. Who is that benefiting? Who is that helping? That's definitely not helping my own mental health. That's not helping my own reality, my own vibration. Or I could come to Canada and say, wow, look at the forest. So gorgeous. Look at this beautiful day. I can't believe it's 25 degrees, perfect weather. Look at this bumblebee just putzing around, just bumbling around. Wow, you know, it's pretty crazy what's going on with Canada right now, but it's so beautiful here. And I'm so glad that I have this land and that I can be here. What are you doing? You're emitting a vibration that affects the rest of the world. So how ironic is it for us to react negatively to what's happening in the world and to feed the world our fear, versus to observe what's happening objectively and find other aspects and elements of appreciation? I am so glad that all of this is happening in my lifetime so I can finally see the change that I've always been dreaming of seeing. It's got to get worse before it gets better. When you're coming from that place, not of ignorance, not of spiritual bypassing, not of distraction, but of full objective awareness and appreciation, you not only transmute your own frequency for your own reality, but you help the rest of the world transmute their frequency for the highest vibration of the best reality that we can all see collectively. And so I hope that makes sense. All right. So just a couple of examples of transmuting. And I just, I didn't want to say like too specific examples because I want you to kind of create your own understanding of that. Your partner sucks in this, and this way. but it, you know, is a good partner to your children or is a good parent to your children. Your job sucks, but it pays the bills, right? Your body sucks, but you love your ass. That's just a funny one. So just a reminder, if you are still fighting with aspects of your reality, you will perpetually bring yourself back into 3D. If you are still fighting with aspects of your reality, you will perpetually bring yourself back into 3D. Love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. Go into the middle, go into the center, observe everything objectively. Take a huge step back from the weeds that you're caught up in your life, okay? It's never about the thing itself. It always comes back to how you perceive and interpret that thing. I could be like a super, I don't know what to call it, like a snotty like person and say, oh my God, like I hate my phone because it's like 2 generations old and like I really just need a new phone. Now, someone else halfway around the world could be like, wow, like I've never had a phone that fancy before, and that's quite incredible. It's never about the thing itself. It's always about your perception around it. And just a reminder, once again, transmuting something to a higher frequency doesn't mean that you have to stay with that shitty job or with that shitty partner. It just means you're dealing with it in the moment and don't have to deal with that energy later down the line. All right. I see you. I see the bad in you. I see the good in you. And I'm going to put myself into a neutral, objective 0 point place so that I can properly discern and make a decision as to whether or not I still want you in my life. If you only see the bad, you're just going to be spiraling. If you only see the good, you're just going to be ignorant. You got to see both in order to find that neutrality. All right. Okay, another good point here. The more you recognize and transmute, the clearer your energy field becomes, and the more you sit in 5D frequency. Okay, so 5D, getting into 5D isn't about what you're doing or what you're not doing. It's about knowing that that's always your state of being. And really focusing on stripping away those extra layers of emotional baggage, really. All right, 5D and connection. Being in a higher frequency means that you are closer to source, which is what I mentioned before, and therefore can begin to see and feel source in every living thing. So I want you to ask yourself right now. Okay, and I want you to also like comment in the comment section below. Oh, good, it sounds good. Okay, comment in the comment section below and then also write this down in your notebook. So, do you consider yourself a compassionate person? Very simple question, and I think I know the answer to that, but I want you to answer that. Do you consider yourself a compassionate person? Yes, lots of yeses. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like you're empathic, you're compassionate, you feel for others. Awesome. All right. Is there, are there any aspects of your reality, whether it be a bigger picture, kind of global reality or individual, that you don't feel compassionate about? And let's just sharpen this up a little bit. I want you to continue to say yes or no with every question I have. All right. And you can write this down in your notebook or just in your mind. Do you have compassion for an animal who has been hit by a car, whether it be a raccoon, a mouse, a bird, a dog, a cat, whatever? Yes, of course. Do you have compassion for a plant that's in your garden that you're trying to grow that just for whatever reason just keeps dying and wilting and looking pretty sad. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Do you have compassion for your family members who don't understand you, who just don't get it? Yes, good. Do you have compassion for people who have been vaccinated? Okay, good. Do you have compassion for the lawmakers in society, the government officials, the news reporters, the individuals who are a part of the system? Yes and no. I struggle, but yes. Good. Thank you for being honest. Okay, no and yes. Not awake, yes. Yes, but hard. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. All right. Yes and no. Okay. Do you have compassion for shape-shifting reptilians who murder innocent children and basically lie to society and manipulate the entire system? Fuck no. Okay, we've got a mixed bag here, yes and no. They need to be rescued. Okay, that's compassion, yeah. All right. Do you have compassion for criminals, murderers, and rapists? Yes and no. Yeah. More than reptilians, yeah. Yeah. All right. A lot of our trigger, a lot of our reactions come from the place where we're not holding true and utter unconditional love for every single incarnated soul in this entire universe. And I think to say, I struggle with it, but ultimately, yes, I do have compassion, is the best place to be in. I was always so scared and so reactionary and so angry at all of the elements of the dark, twisted, evil, if you could call it that, world that we also exist in as well. And upon having a lot of interactions with reptilians, shapeshifters, like the really gross ones, it was years ago. But the second that I realized and recognized that reptilians, just as an example, that the really dark, evil ones, because there's really good ones too, have source frequency within them, the second I realized that they are also just a soul incarnating in a body, taking action on certain things that are obviously not in a high vibration. But the second that I realized that they had source within them, I had compassion for them. The second that I've gone into past lifetimes where I've been a criminal, a murderer, a rapist, just caught up in the system, I had compassion for every single other being out there who is in that position. 5D is having ultimately the most unconditional love and compassion for every living thing in this entire universe. I have so much compassion. Here I am on this beautiful property with 8 acres of forest, lots of bugs, lots of creepy crawlers, and I have so much love for them. Anytime they come around, I never swat them, smack them. I never try, at least, kill any living thing. And because they recognize that vibration within me, they really, truly don't usually bug me. Actually, I want to just mention a little bit of a metaphor for you. It was like such a profound download. One of the first days I was here, I got a mosquito bite on my leg, Of course, I just said they don't bug me, and then I get a mosquito bite. But you know, it's not as much as my wife, that's for sure. I got a mosquito bite on my leg, and I scratched it that night. I think I was just like half asleep, scratching my leg. In the morning, the mosquito bite was gone, completely gone. But all of my scratches were still there. Do you see how the cause of the reaction usually doesn't have a big effect on our life? The reaction itself is the thing that will always impede our divine flow to a higher frequency. We have control over that. We may not always have utter control in the moment over the cause itself, but we always have control over the reaction. And it doesn't mean that I want you all to say, don't react, don't react. It means I want you all to take a moment with all of the things that are going on in your life, with all of the triggers and the reactions and the upheavals and the challenges. And I want you to try and consciously transmute those things into a higher vibration through love and appreciation. And that's when you really start to stabilize in that 5D frequency.